stopping movie.
Hello, hello. If you're just joining us, please say hi in the chat. We also have this QR code here. Please go ahead and scan it. It's going to take you to a tool called Slido, where we'll be doing Q&A, surveys, etc. Welcome. Hi, Candice. Welcome. Thanks for joining. Just going to let everyone join. We'll start right on the hour, so give us about 3 minutes. There's a timer right there on the screen. If you don't mind, please go ahead and scan this QR code. It'll take you to a tool we're using for Q&A and surveys. Hello, Alin. Hello, Annie. Thanks for joining. Where are you from? Annie might be a little shy. That's okay. Guys, we're going to get started in a minute and a half. Please go ahead and scan this QR code we have on the screen here. We're going to be using a tool called Slido for live Q&A, making sure you can get the most value out of this as possible. There's also going to be some surveys, etc. So please go ahead and scan the QR. No app download, nothing like that. Just use your phone, and it's quite simple. So, from Prague, nice. I am also in Prague. Good city, good city. All right, 1 minute, guys. Alrighty, pausing it there before the horrific alarm starts. Thanks for joining, everyone. My name is Pavel. I'm the head of new business here at AppAgent. I'm also a member of our internal AI council team that's responsible for sourcing, testing, and implementing new AI technologies. Really excited to be having this webinar today. We're taking a reality check on AI, exploring its current limitations and future transformations. So really quick, just a couple of quick things to cover. As I've mentioned to those who joined early, we're using this tool called Slido to run live Q&A, polls, questions, etc. throughout the webinar. We'd really like this to be interactive. So I ask you all to go ahead and scan this QR code. You don't have to download some kind of app or anything. It's really quite simple, and it will enable you to take part in the live Q&A. Also, feel free to submit Q&A questions throughout. We'll be scanning them periodically throughout the webinar to answer some of them. And yeah, let's go ahead and get started. So what is AI? Well, that's a very broad question that you can answer a lot of different ways. One way of looking at it is sort of as the third major technological shift of the modern era, starting with the internet. So 1994 with Netscape, broad scale usage there, moving to the first iPhone in 2007, and finally in 2020 with ChatGPT's use of large language models. It's really sort of a new paradigm shift and going to affect all of our lives and work in lots of ways, and kind of already has. But even though this is only relatively recently coming to the forefront of public sort of mind, it's really been evolving since 1943. The concept of a neural network was actually invented in 1943, and then a large stack of PhDs and research done on top of that sort of culminated in the invention of large language models with OpenAI's release of ChatGPT 3. With every new technology, there's sort of an adoption curve. You know, we start with a lot of excitement, people screaming about doom and gloom, as well as utopia, and finally settling down into some sort of trough of disillusionment. And this is really the focus of this webinar today. It's people coming up, their expectations coming up against reality, so to speak, of what this technology can and can't do. So today we hope to walk you through what we've experienced through our tests with the technologies, and as well take a look into the future to what's going to be happening in the next few years, how it might affect your work in the mobile marketing space, etc. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our guests. Brian Bowman, former CEO of Consumer Acquisition, began his career in Hollywood as a computer animator, worked on feature films, music videos, TV commercials, etc. He held executive roles at such small companies that you might not have heard of, such as ABC, Disney, Yahoo, Match.com, before finally bootstrapping Consumer Acquisition and making an 8-figure exit to Brain Labs. Now an investor, advisor, board member, he has generated over 15,000 images with Midjourney and also runs a small Etsy store for fun. So welcome, Brian. Great to have you on.
Nice to be here. Thanks.
And then the man needs no introduction, Peter Fodor, founder and CEO of AppAgent, a growth and creative agency helping mobile gaming studios to increase their user base and revenue. Peter started in marketing over 20 years ago and has been in mobile since 2011. He aims to help companies grow in the mobile space through expert knowledge and personal involvement. Welcome, Peter.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining.
Great. So let's jump right in. Brian, tell me, what is it about large language models that's such a big deal? I mean, what really is it?
You know, it's funny to start at kind of this point. You know, if you roll all the way back to Turing and what he was doing with Enigma, I just watched the Netflix series about Hitler and the Nazis. You know, he built the algorithm that broke Enigma and actually helped win the war. But he was operating with very little data. These things, these large language models, are beyond massive, and they talk about the number of tokens that are in there. If you look at the graph to the right, you'll see ChatGPT 2 going to ChatGPT 5. They are absolutely massive in terms of the number of data points, exabytes, which actually I had to look up. It's billions of gigabytes. And you can see the cost of indexing or in training these algorithms into the billions of dollars. And so lots and lots of information from images, videos, text are being used to fuel this industry. And a proxy, I would say, for how the industry is doing is NVIDIA. They are now the second most valuable company on earth behind Microsoft. And soon, they just beat Apple, if you can imagine. And it looks like they're on the path to being the most valuable company. Their graphic cards enable the indexing and processing of this information. So lots of information being brought in. And as we go on to the next slide, the reason that's important is people like to say that AI is intelligent. And a good buddy of mine runs the computer labs at USC. And basically what he calls them is really good guessers. These are phenomenal statistical models that understand patterns, and they're very good at guessing what's next. But they're not smart. They don't understand what it is they're doing. And in fact, if you look at OpenAI's public statements, they will say, we don't actually know how the algorithm works. It just does. And a byproduct of that is some of the images you see off to the right, which are impossible. Like, why do hands have 6 or 7 fingers? And if you've ever tried to do a yoga pose out of anything like Midjourney or your favorite kind of stable diffusion model, it will give you very weird results. Or if you try to get someone to kneel down, it often can't. And the reason is the algorithm will try to predict things, but doesn't have a way currently, and that's in ChatGPT-4, of validating its assumptions. So you'll get impossible math problems, or you'll get historical figures that are often quoted as real but don't exist. And if you're an attorney, you'll have legal cases that it will cite, but those things don't exist also. So for the time being, despite all of this incredible innovation, LLMs or AI, generative AI, is not intelligent in the human sense of the word.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So, Peter, this topic is very, very broad, as we all know. Lot has been said and is currently being written about it. How can we make this discussion relevant for our audience, specifically mobile marketers, creative minds, etc.?
There's really a lot of ways how we can utilize AI on both individual and company level, and we have just 50 minutes left, so we need to narrow it down. So we will be focusing on generative marketing because there's the biggest expertise of mine and Brian, who led a similar agency years ago. But you can also use AI for optimizing marketing efforts through ad creative testing or optimizing A/B tests in stores. Also identify patterns in creatives. So there's the marketing side. And on the, let's say, development side, you can use it to create characters, NPC characters and their conversations with the player. And as well, to use it to optimize, let's say, pricing or game balancing to be very customized and dynamic. But even to avoid fraud and things that are quite difficult to do with the classic algorithms. So let's focus on the top left quadrant. And if we zoom in, there's, in my eyes, 4 different, let's say, buckets of what generative marketing consists of. And that's generating ideas. On the next slide, please. Generating ideas, then generating assets, generating content, and generating insights. Most of us use AI for ideation, refining copy. We will speak today about iterations. There's really amazing use case for AI. Brian has some awesome examples how to do it effectively and increase the diversity of ad creatives. We also use it, let's say, here in the creative team for assets production and even for let's say content production. But the biggest value in my eyes is in generating insights, because there you really need the AI use case is there to provide insights that otherwise a human being wouldn't be able to get from the vast amount of data. So it can help you to identify top ads and some patterns between them, help you with predictions. Lots of automations could be done with help of AI. But the caveat here is it takes lots of effort. You need to have good skill set in the company, data engineers and specialists in AI. So this is the most difficult part, and I feel the one that needs to be explored more, both by AppAgent and other companies that I'm talking to, because there's the biggest value.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. Yeah, I just want to say really quick for the audience, if you're out there taking furious notes, no need. I mean, please feel free to take notes, of course. But we will be sharing this presentation for everyone after the webinar finishes. So just a heads up. So onwards, as I mentioned, we have a few surveys that we're going to be going through today. For those who joined a little bit late, please go ahead and scan this QR code. It's going to take you to a tool called Slido. It's not an app, don't worry. It's just a way for you to participate in this webinar surveys, and as well as submit questions for our live Q&A. So we want to know, what types of AI tools are you using in your work? And there's quite a few potential answers. Feel free to select all that apply. Afterwards, we're going to take a look at this against some research that was done. That's quite interesting to see. So I'll give it a couple minutes for people to submit responses.
While we're doing that, I did want to make a couple of comments on a slide that I skipped, which I think is fascinating. When you look at the use of generative AI, one of the ways you should not use it is to try and create precise work. And I think one of the ways that would be most beneficial to use it is what people call non-deterministic or non-precise work, inspiration. It's exceptionally good at coming up with wacky new ideas. And to kind of put a shine on all of that, Bob Iger, who's the CEO of Disney, recently said that, of course, Walt Disney would have embraced AI in the filmmaking process because Disney was very technology forward in his day. And I think that's an interesting kind of note that will help accelerate its use kind of industry wide. If you use it in the right manner, in the right way as a helper to what people are doing today, it's a really powerful idea.
Absolutely. All right, so it looks like we got quite a few responses here. Thank you guys for participating. Image generation is leading the way, 81%. Grammar checkers, content creation, knowledge management. Cool. So let's take a look, shall we, at how this compares to Hampton, who ran a survey amongst 100 founders and CEOs to ask them the same question. How are they using AI tools in various categories for their businesses? So not too surprising here to see that chatbots are leading the way. Although I noticed that was different from the results our survey got, oddly enough. However, grammar checkers, image generation, same kind of stuff. So yeah, clearly, the use cases for AI are expanding rapidly. AI is making massive progress. At the AI Council and AppAgent, we sometimes feel that we'll be testing a new tool, and then next week something better comes out that's completely different. And most of our tests, as a result, end up being far from ready for, let's say, production or something. So let's take a look, shall we, at some limitations and maybe even some fail stories. Where is AI lacking? Peter, let's ask, what are the common fails people at AppAgent are experiencing with their work using AI?
I believe this section will be a lot of fun, but let's start with ChatGPT and LLMs. So one thing that I've noticed among our people and also friends of mine is approaching ChatGPT or Gemini the same way as we are using Google. So typing a prompt, typing a search query, and taking the result and just applying it somehow. Whereas I believe, and it proved to me many times, that the biggest value you get only when you get into conversation, when you really start refining your question, providing more context, when you ask for specific type of output, be it a table or formatting or style. then only you are getting something unique. And we discussed before we went live with Brian that nowadays, maybe 9 out of 10 cases, Brian, we go to ChatGPT or Gemini rather than to Google. So that's interesting change in how we search for information. The trouble here is, and that's also in real life, lots of people don't know how to ask right questions. And that goes especially for juniors who are not like domain experts, and they don't know what kind of output they want to get at the very end. So we need to train them, and I will speak about this in a second. The second failure I've experienced myself was using custom GPT. I wanted to help the team with OKR agent, as I call it. We don't have a slide for that. That's just top of mind. And I imported, our methodologies, how to approach OKR, guides, historical data, information about the company. And when I tested the custom GPT, I've seen that it's somehow mixing the inputs from our company with the general knowledge and information, and I wasn't able to get a consistent type of answers. It was always like kind of random. There's a way how to solve this. You need to train ChatGPT in a very closed environment. Technologically, you can do it, but I was kind of disappointed that this idea of having something that's very custom didn't work as I expected. Now to the fun stuff. So visual assets. I've asked our team to share some of the recent fails. So let's jump on the first slide with a visual example. This is an illustration of a concept where a person should hit the pile of books in a library. And as Brian mentioned, LLMs and general AI is guessing, and they don't understand things such as physics. For them, it's just, an image, and they don't understand the consequences. So here you can see how it can turn crazy. It looks like from Matrix in a sense, and that's just an output that's based on missing the understanding of physical principles. And if you go to the next slide, there's a similar situation with a character that should spread marmalade on a toast. On the first image, it's actually on a small plate. On the second, you can see like this weird, let's say, physics of the marmalade itself. So again, this is just a side effect of how AI works. On to the next one. Here we can see the classic problem of legs. On the left, one leg of the male protagonist is missing. This should be a seductive scene, and in the middle there's actually more legs than it should be, and on the very right, female legs were mounted on a male character. So I don't know how many attempts it took Sabina to get the right one, but it wasn't very easy. The next one is about the influence of the input. So here we wanted to create Sherlock standing next to the bookshelves. And it actually used poses, probably from Instagram or other social media, like these sexy poses, instead of just showing us the character simply standing in front of a library. So here you can really see how AI is using all the different resources, maybe even your photos, to be trained, and then applying that on your prompt. Next one. This is also caused by how it's trained and used. And one of the issues we are seeing quite frequently is misinterpretation of objects and relationships. So the prompt here was Dragon X. So on the left, the yellow X is not like the real egg. On the middle there's something that reminds maybe a hen, maybe a dragon. And on the very right, which is the closest to what we wanted, it looks like ceramic, or maybe drawn on eggs, maybe like Easter eggs, the dragons, but far from what we wanted to visualize for the concept that we developed for one of our clients. Maybe there's a couple of videos. So we are often using Runway or Leonardo to enhance some statics assets to give them a bit of life. So this is the way how to make the visual more attractive. But if you go one click back, and yeah, now you can see that it's repeating and the movements are a bit odd. So sometimes these idle movements are not done properly by AI because again, it's missing the understanding how things should move in the real world. And there's, I guess, another one connected to people. This is from Photoshop, where we wanted to make this character to wink. And you can see how many attempts, 6, 7, where this is impossible to achieve. So another interesting fail. Sometimes it really takes ages to get what you want, but ultimately, if you are about to draw it yourself in Photoshop, it will take you much longer. So it's better to do multiple tries and finally use AI for what you want to get. And there's one more, if not mistaken. Speaking of winking characters, this is Heijen avatar for a game called Garbage Truck 3D, if I'm not mistaken. And we'll play a video and try to spot if there's anything wrong about it.
Wait a minute. What's this? Who would throw away all this cash? You guys haven't heard. Trash treasure hunting is all the rage now. People are stashing their savings in banana peels and coffee grounds, I'm telling you. Oops.
So
I just need to improve my driving skills.
This guy should improve his winking. He somehow forgot to wink. So again, a subtle detail, but these are the things that people can spot, and they might feel there's something odd about the creative, and then it's not really engaging enough. So you have to be careful when to use it, and maybe this could be resolved by quick editing. So you just switch from the character talking to the gameplay or to some motion graphics. So there's ways around it. But if you're speaking about fails, this is one of them. So that's these fails from our own kitchen, and I hope that it was entertaining for our viewers.
Thanks, Peter. Yeah, very, very interesting. I enjoyed that. Let's get the audience involved. So how are you? Let's not do that. How are you guys in the audience? Where is AI falling short for you? Maybe you can share some experiences. If you're just joining us, once again, please scan this QR code so you can participate in this survey. We'll also have Q&A later, so feel free to drop questions for Peter and Brian in there as well. So I'll give it a couple minutes while participants add some of their fails, and we'll read a few of the funny ones out.
Brian, what are your most common fails? You're using Midjourney a lot, so
yeah. The one thing I was going to say is it's an incredible tool. If you look at Midjourney, where I've spent a lot of my time, you can create. I'm not an artist in the sense of my drawing skills are actually fairly weak. I've been doing computer animation for decades. You can do things that are incredibly fast and absolutely gorgeous and beautiful based on style. However, if you want to do things like you started to show where you make it more gold or you slightly change a character, it just doesn't respond in the way that you will want. And I find myself constantly going down rabbit holes where I am querying and re-querying and re-prompting and trying to get it to just turn the head a little bit or look down or give me a worm's eye view. And the tools are just not built for that, specifically because they don't have the reference art. Mm-hmm. One of the tests I would encourage people to run if you really want to dig into how this works, do a very simple prompt like a Labrador in the style of Walt Disney or a Labrador in the style of Tim Burton, and go after about 100 artists and kind of rip through it. You will very quickly see if it knows who the artist is. And if it doesn't, it'll blend results and give you kind of a weird Labrador puppy or a lab. It basically, if it knows, it does really, really phenomenal work. Even better, there's nothing like being able to say blend a Picasso and blend a Walt Disney or a Geiger and a Disney. I do that all the time. You get really strange results, and that just would take an artist forever to do. But if it doesn't know, it just guesses and hallucinates and does some very strange things. So you got to kind of work with what it is. And any time you spend doing this, like I mentioned, I have this strange little Etsy store of coloring books, and I only did it because I was generating so much art. I'm like, what the hell am I going to do with all this stuff? It became so difficult to get it to do things that you just go around it, right? You just ignore certain things and move on. For those folks that can't, that are actually in the process of trying to deliver for a client, at those moments, it's probably better to turn it over to an artist and say, here's the inspiration, here's what we're trying to accomplish. Can you do this from scratch? And as you can imagine, in like the Sherlock Holmes version of what you showed, if you had an illustrator doing a matte painting like that, that's a couple weeks of work. It's a huge amount of effort. So if you can get AI to do it, you should. But if you need revisions for a client, sometimes the only way to do it is to start over. I mean, I think the good news is ChatGPT 5 and what Midjourney continues to announce and to work on, they're just leaps and bounds getting better and smarter. And I mean, think about it. It's only been around a couple of years. And imagine where we will be at the end of this year, or imagine where we'll be at the end of next year, substantially better. The one thing I would ask people to do is please stop morphing, or whatever they call that from Sora and Evo. Like it's kind of like back to the early 90s when morphing was invented for television commercials. Everyone seems to want to do these baby 6-second animations of kind of image to image sliding. And that's, I guess, the best that the systems are doing right now until Evo and Sora get released. But man, it's painful to see those things everywhere.
Totally. Looks like we got quite a few answers in. So I think in the interest of time, let's take a look at some of these fails. So yeah, 3D modeling, general public quickly learning to read them and understand that they're looking at AI. That's definitely a big deal. Still easy to tell that ChatGPT wrote something, making things human. Still not great for that, of course. Terrible for Scan 4 with custom GPT. So yeah, any thoughts on these fails you guys are seeing, or pretty much par for the course?
Actually, I see Mona is in the audience. She was one of our creative strategists at Consumer Acquisition. She and I had a conversation recently where she said she's training ChatGPT to write like her. So, with it, she's done enough writing that she can feed it and train it in her style. I don't agree you can tell when it's AI written if you prompt it enough.
Right.
What I would recommend is if it feels like it's too verbose, they call it bursting, where it just kind of blathers on. Just have it rewrite that paragraph and change it for you. And for the parents out there, I know there was this brouhaha about 6 to 12 months ago where your children could get in trouble if they used AI. Note that OpenAI took down their AI detection system. They said it's impossible to detect algorithmically if something had been written by AI. I mean, we're just at this tipping point where it's very good, and it's even better if you prompt carefully.
Right.
It's pretty compelling writing. I'm not saying that it's Shakespeare. I'm saying it can get you one hell of a quick start, and then you can use it as inspiration and rewrite it. Rewrite the paragraphs in your own style, or like Mona's trying to do, train it so it does your work, your style.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. All right, so we've been talking a lot about, on the single user level, let's say the use case level. I'd like to zoom out to the organizational level. Peter, where do you see companies failing at their utilization of AI as, let's say, a company?
So the first thing that we have realized ourselves a couple of months ago is focusing on AI from the, let's say, tool angle rather than a user angle. What I mean by that, people typically look at AI tool and then try to figure out how to use it. But the better approach, in my perspective, is to understand what I want to achieve, what's the use case, what's the end result, and then to look for either one suitable tool or a combination of different tools. And then you need to adjust your process typically, and also the inputs. So having the use case, having the end goal is, I believe, the way to go, and definitely should be a priority of management. Because another thing that I see among other companies is that unless AI is the top management's priority, it's very difficult to set some rules to make it as a part of training and onboarding of new people as well. and generally systematically explore it. And if you put back the slide that was there a few seconds ago, this is our AI backlog where we have these use cases defined, and these are then explored, rated, and helps us to understand, where we can see the biggest efficiency gains, or some new stuff that with the, let's say, human creator or marketer wouldn't be possible. So this is our approach, how to systematize the exploration. And we also mentioned this like training AI to serve you, your own like voice or even your knowledge base. So we started recently, and I feel it was also quite late to develop the knowledge base that's using AI. So you can ask in natural language any question about the company, policies, resources, guidelines, templates. And you get the answer right away, because with the growing business, you get so much data that, especially for the newcomer, might be difficult to grasp. But with the help of AI, you can really get the value very quickly. And maybe the very last point, something that personally bothers me, is the approach of especially bigger companies to AI from the legal perspective. That's, I believe, a massive fail. I haven't seen probably a single company that has some structured and reasonable approach by categorizing different use cases and saying, these are the use cases, let's say using ChatGPT for ideation or copywriting. That's fine. And these are the use cases that, because of IP or other reasons, we don't like to see. Everyone in the legal team typically says no AI and period. So that, I believe, needs to change, because there's no way to be competitive now and in the future not using AI, and legal teams should understand this.
Makes sense. I'm curious to hear what the audience has to say about this. Those of you in the audience participating, please let's hear what your company's approach is to AI. Does it even have one? Is it rather conservative, only some use cases allowed? Is it generally positive with some limitations? Or is it more of a fully open, let's test everything we can, this is the future, we need to stay on top of this? So yeah, couple minutes, just really quick, just out of curiosity, I want to hear how the audience's companies are handling this.
Yeah, I want to kind of dovetail with what Peter was saying there a bit, with some more specifics. One of the challenges we're hearing quite broadly from companies is, look, we're not going to use generative AI to do characters. We can't own it. It puts us at legal exposure from a copywriting perspective, from an IP protection perspective, rather. But then I think you extrapolate that into music, sound effects, things that are permanent, I think become challenging. When you're using it as a layer or an integrated whole into a bigger thing, and you're changing and manipulating so that you can own it, then I think people get more comfortable. Part of what Peter and I have talked about is some folks are just not open to it at all. And I think that's the wrong approach, because it's going to put you at a competitive disadvantage, and your teams won't be able to move as quickly as others.
Yeah, that's a great point. Okay, cool. So yeah, it looks like basically everyone is testing something, which isn't a surprise since this is an AI webinar. But yeah, it looks like 50-50, fully open or generally positive with some natural limitations. So sounds good. Cool. We have one question from the audience. Working on a pitch deck for a horror film, but all the images look cartoonish and not photorealistic, which I include in the prompts. How can I fix? Which of you would like to take this one?
If they could be more specific in terms of either dropping the prompt in or which system they're using, Midjourney, Stable Diffusion, Leonardo, et cetera, it really comes down to the prompt. I think there are a ton of really good resources on LinkedIn in particular for prompt fixing or enhancing, let's call it. In particular today, the ability to do styles, so emo versus cartoon versus illustration versus photoreal. the systems are actually extraordinary at drawing those visual distinctions now. So I think using DaVinci. Yeah, so try Mid-Journey, try Stable Diffusion. And you can ask it, you can even use Gemini or ChatGPT to help you fix the prompt so that you can you'll get a photorealistic export on it. If you send it to us here, I can look at it and give you my 2 cents.
Cool. Excellent. All right. So closing out the fail section. Thanks, guys. Let's move on to something more positive. What are the best AI use cases today? Like what should everyone in the audience be using or be considering using in their workflows in mobile marketing? Clearly, it's still early. Many things are far from perfect. But on the other hand, I see lots of people in my office on basically every team using it for various purposes, and it seems to be adding quite a bit of efficiency as well as just overall quality too. I think it's a two-sided coin there. Brian, you have some evidence that about 95% of new creative concepts fail. Can you maybe share with us how us marketers can leverage AI to improve this horrendous win rate of 5%?
Sure. So we can go to the next slide. I think some of the folks who are from our team will recognize this collateral here. You know, we managed about 3 billion in paid social spend, and we did several 100,000 videos and images internally. And the reason we studied this so aggressively was I personally was stunned at the failure rate. And the failure rate means if you design a brand new concept, what's the odds that it actually wins and becomes the best performing asset in the portfolio? And the reason that matters is if it isn't the best performer, it will stumble and die, meaning it will stop getting impressions very, very quickly. In some cases, as little as a few hundred or a few thousand impressions. And you can imagine you put a bunch of work into an image or a video and the thing gets 5,000 impressions, it's a bummer. Versus for some reason, there's like sprinkle fairy dust magic on some of these concepts and they run for weeks or months and they spend a tremendous amount of money. There is no changing it. That's the failure rate. That's the success rate. The only thing you can do is come up with a mechanism for incubating new ideas. And I think there's a way to do it building on some of what, if we can go to the next slide. Actually, I wanted to share a bit more data before I do that. So go ahead. Yeah, this one. So this has nothing to do with consumer acquisition. This is just the Candy Crush team. And they were sharing how long their ads run. So completely unrelated to anything we did as a company. This is their own data. And it kind of corroborates what we were saying, which is you're going to spend an awful lot of time and more importantly, money. And that money is both in the media buying and in the A/B or multivariate testing that you're doing, running these ads and trying to come up with winners. And they're just not going to stay around that long. So is there a way to take your best performing videos and keep them alive longer? And my hypothesis is yes, you can. So if we can go to the next slide, please. All right. I have two ideas here. One of them is selfishly, I would love to be able to empower UA managers. And that means extricate them from the creative flow, give them tools that they need so they could sprint. UA managers are unique. They deal with minutia all day long and they kind of revel in it. They do extraordinarily well with it. So the idea here is at the very bottom, what if we took all of these AI components, AI avatars, AI voice and scripts, closed caption, translation into multiple languages, sound effects and music, and you treat them as an A/B test. One of the things we did at Match.com, we were studying what's the ideal man and what's the ideal woman to put into an ad, because we were spending an enormous amount of television dollars on it. You know, you test age, gender, accent, tone, cadence. It's very difficult to do when you have real human beings, right? You got to do casting calls and you got to put them in front of things. This, when you're using technology, it's trivial. So the idea is you take your best performing ad and you change nothing. If you try and relaunch that ad in Meta or Google or TikTok, their systems are smart. They fingerprint the ad. They know the physical size of the ad. They know the run length. And you can use all kinds of tricks and techniques, but they will figure out that it's the same ad and they will give it no new impressions. However, change the file size by adding an avatar, change the file size by adding a voiceover or closed caption, and they have to give it a new set of impressions to figure out how it's going to perform. So it's a bit of a trick that would allow you to take, if you can imagine, last month's best ad and then rolling backwards over the past 6 months, and then add systematically, point by point, these elements, avatars, voices, closed captions, and see, does it breathe new life into these existing ads? The reason for doing it is it takes your best visual performer and the best at what AI has to offer, which is these avatars and scripts and closed captions really deliver what it is you want. So you're not spending a bunch of time creating new visuals that you're going to kind of go down that rabbit hole and struggle with. So an UA manager should be able to crank these things out. If you happen to have a custom compositing workflow that doesn't require you touching the creative team, that would allow them to kind of have a self-contained system where they dump in these elements, a very simple compositing software spits them out in a multiple resolution format, and then the UA manager takes them and does the testing. The beauty here is you're removing iterations from the creative workflow. And the reason you're doing that, if we can go to the next slide, is you want to give the creative team the ability to focus on new ideas. And new ideas are extremely difficult to do, right? 5% succeed, 95% fail. So what can we do and how do you use AI to breathe life into these? Quantic Foundry came up with this very interesting gamer motivation model. We had a version of it. I think most companies today have a version of a creative matrix that they use. And you test it based on the style and type of game that's being run. However, there's this really cool thing that's floating around a lot of the systems today, and they call it copywriting techniques. For example, FOMO, fear of missing out, or social proof. If you can imagine, you create a matrix which is ideas, and you keep extending it horizontally by adding in copywriting techniques. The style and type and tone of the copy and of what's in the ad is dictated by the style that you're communicating to. What you'll find is the personas, the market segments that you appeal to will latch on to particular styles of these copywriting techniques, but really it's the way in which they experience advertising. Are they a negative person? Are they a positive person? Are they an excited person? Are they somebody who likes to compete? All of those elements appeal to different market segments. If you can have AI help you and come up with the ADA version of this ad, it's really interesting. So I said, is it possible? So can we go to the next slide, please? This is something that you'll have this prompt, you can do it yourself. I literally grabbed this image from Google and I ran it through Gemini and I said, look, you're a creative strategist. Here's the things I'd like you to do. I want you to study this ad. Tell me what's in it. Analyze it from a copywriting perspective. Tell me what works about the ad and what doesn't work about the ad. And I really had no expectations that it was going to be able to do this. Because generative AI is multimodal, meaning ad copy, images, video, it understands different media types. I was absolutely blown away that it could not only do it, but it did a really good job. So it diagnosed what's in the ad. Now these are static images, right? Not a video, but it diagnosed what was in the ad. And then if we can go to the next one, it also, you can use it. Next slide, please. Thank you. This is really hard to read, but what I tried to get it, nope, sorry, backwards. What I tried to get it to do was create a storyboard for me. So in essence, this is a strategist's job. I wanted to get a 5-frame storyboard similar to, but different from what it saw as the images on the first slide. And I'll be damned if it didn't do it. And it gave me a really interesting way of thinking about it. The visuals, the sound, the text, the emotional goal. Now, as these systems get smarter, and my understanding is ChatGPT 5 will be able to analyze videos, you can say, analyze every fifth frame, analyze every third frame, tell me what's in that frame. You don't have to ask it to be a human being and take the golden thread and tie it across the entire thing. It will analyze those frames for you, and then it can look at it and say, oh, here's what it's trying to accomplish based on those individual frames. Now, think about it for me and break it down into those copywriting techniques. And I want you to give me 20 ideas. My goal is not to disintermediate the creative strategist role. It's rather to say, I'm going to stand it up and give you a bunch of things to react to so that you're not starting from scratch. You're starting from a canvas that has something already on it. They could all be garbage and you throw them away, or there could be points in here that you look at it and say, that's a pretty good idea. I want to play with that. Or I'm going to take it and run with it in total. Perfect. The thought here is using these systems to help accelerate what a person can do. One, analyze competitive ads. Two, understand what's in the ad, tag it, diagnose it. And then three, come up with new ideas. If you guys are familiar with Blackbox, this company, they're trying to do some of these components. I think the missing loop here is, if your goal is to have the computer do everything, it's not going to be as good as if you have a human try and do it. So the purpose of this little section here is to say, I believe there's an opportunity to take the existing workflows, the existing pieces like avatars and music and captions that are working and working well today, and then use them to help you come up with new iterations and new concepts. So try it, see if it works. Let me know. That'd be great.
Cool. A lot of great stuff there, Brian. Thank you. I want to interrupt the flow of the webinar really quick to ask a question that we got from the audience. Peter, what do you think about people calling themselves AI artists? Do you think it's fair when they're using a tool that combines so many people's work?
Is it fair that someone calls himself or herself as a Photoshop artist? Like, it's the same, like it's just another tool in my eyes. And the same was with, drawing, then photography, then digital photography, then digital post-production. Now, AI is, in my eyes, just evolution of the technology. So yes, the nature of the work changes, but the same was, with learning Photoshop and tweaking the raw image into something that very often looked quite differently. So in my eyes, yes, but we have to accept, and I will speak about it in the last section, that roles, especially in the creative industry, will drastically change, and many will won't be around maybe in 3-5 years.
Mm-hmm.
There's a phenomenal quote that I always used from Picasso that says, "A good artist borrows, but a great artist steals."
Yeah, here we are.
That is what has been in art for centuries. And when I look at I follow a bunch of folks on LinkedIn and on Facebook who are quote unquote AI artists. I am absolutely blown away at what they're able to make the systems do. I mean, they are just honestly visual badasses, and they do wonderful work. I think it's a new medium. It's like, as Peter was saying, it's like a photographer or a 3D animator or any other technology that's being introduced into a traditional medium. You really can get some great things. Are they physically drawing? No, but a 3D animator doesn't physically draw either. So I do think they're artists, and I think it's something new. If we can go to the list of tools, because there's a couple of things here I want to make sure we touch on before we get to the new section. Next slide. Yeah, this is a very big list, and there's a super list at the end. The reason I wanted to kind of throw this kitchen sink at the group here is there is an awful lot of phenomenal work being done, and it's damn complicated. Meaning, This isn't a workflow. These are individual tools. The ability to pull a video out and integrate it with other components. I mean, if you were to try and learn those, whatever that is, 13, 20 video tools, it would take you forever. If you tried to learn just the AI avatar techniques or tools, it would take you a long time. So, pick a couple. They're kind of front weighted by the most interesting ones. I added AI 3D to it specifically because I think some of the most interesting work is being done in the automation of 3D objects, texture mapping, etc. Nerfs. There's really phenomenal work being done to help accelerate the work of 3D artists. And that is a very mature industry. It's been around since 95. And that kind of work is still going on. So we're at the very beginning of this process, and it's a hot mess, right? It's like Dogpile, AltaVista, web crawler, Metacrawler. Like, there's no Google yet of AI in the sense of there isn't something that integrates this all into a cohesive workflow. You could pull and push individual pieces. I think Comfy UI is something that's very interesting, and they're trying to do components like this. We have a very long way to go before this thing is simplified. And I'm personally interested in seeing what Adobe cranks out over the next couple of years with their tools.
Yeah, definitely. Anyone know of an AI that can alleviate unexpected coughing fits while hosting a webinar? That'd be fantastic. What about now? No, I'm okay. Let's move on. We're a little short on time. I want to make sure we get as much Q&A time as possible. So we're going to cut this section a little short. I'm going to skip a poll here, but let's just jump straight to Peter. A lot of people are worried about how AI is going to affect their jobs. Some people think it's going to absolutely, replace them. What are your thoughts, like maybe more soberly, about the impact of AI on our work? How do you foresee that playing out?
We already touched it now by saying that the role of an artist is changing. And I've seen some interesting data from the US saying that 80% of US employees will have at least 10% of their tasks automated by AI. And for nearly 20%, it will be half of their work to be automated, which means that, our roles will drastically change, and we need to be very honest to ourselves how, and maybe even proactively revise this, let's say, changing environment every 6 to 12 months, and be honest to ourselves if the role I'm serving today is still relevant and will be relevant in a year or two from now. So ultimately, we have to accept that AI will outperform a human on any given cognitive task. So that's where it all is heading. And the way how to sort of fight it is to educate ourselves, have these candid conversations, help our kids to be more, let's say, adaptive, and pretty much forget the concept of education for lifetime long career, because jobs will change that quickly that no one can prepare the current young generation for what's coming in the next 5 to 10 years. And where I feel will be the role of us people is to really focus on, let's say, being human, like human-centered. What I mean by that is either picking a job that's irreplaceable, like taking care of old people, or doing some, let's say, activities that are done in the real world, or because we are speaking about mobile marketing and communication and creativity, to really focus on emotions, building strong connection with our communities, be it a product or a gaming community, using humor, which is quite difficult to be replaced by AI, at least for now, and apply this human approach to everything what we do, because that will probably be the last resort, dominated by artificial intelligence.
Yeah, if I can add to that slightly different perspective. Sure. I was doing interactive television design back in 1995, and I would have bet you anything that it was going to work, and it still isn't here, right? Decades later. Mm-hmm. people who run market segments are very slow to embrace technology because of the fear of disruption of their existing business models. There's no shoving this genie back in the bottle, right? AI isn't going away. AI isn't going to slow down. Governments aren't going to regulate it, because right now it is an all-in battle to whoever's going to get general intelligence. Because if it happens, they break encryption and you get access to nuclear weapons, and then Terminators come and all that crazy shit. So there is no limit. If you look at the sheet that we put up there, Leopold Aschenbrenner, who's a researcher at OpenAI, believed that it's towards the bottom, that super intelligence could be reached by 2027. Look, he's either right or wrong. And that is the AI future trends. If you go up a few, slide 38, it is going to happen, and it is going to be a phenomenal change. I would encourage you guys to Google a video from the founder of the Khan Academy, and he's showing you what AI does with his son, right? The idea of ChatGPT 5 and how a human being interacts with an AI that actually understands images and videos. You can ask it questions, it understands the questions and can help you along. It is awesome. It's inspiring. And I think all of us are at that place. This is going to take longer than any of us think. I think anyone who is currently considering a job change or is working on their LinkedIn profile, figure out ways to sprinkle AI into your workflow and your words in a thoughtful way, because I think it's meaningful. And I think you should spend the time to cross-train into these tools because it's going to matter. And rarely in life do we get an opportunity to see these kind of changes. I think we began by showing the web. If you were back in 95 and you said to someone, how is the browser going to impact your life? Nobody had a freaking clue. And then if you asked them when a mobile phone came out, how much would you use it? I don't think any of us would have said 6 hours a day. That's where we are with AI. It will come out in ways we don't expect it. It will help us. And then I hope someone is smart enough to contain the worst components of what may happen with super intelligence.
Definitely. Listen, we have 3 minutes left. I say we skip straight to Q&A. Let's answer some of the audience questions. Thanks, guys. Lots of really great points. So let's see what we have here. You guys can kind of look as well. Let me know if you spot something. I guess we could start with what would there be value in Pixar training on its 50 hours of movie to try for a new character? It would be ethically sourced since it's all their material.
100%, they should be. Look, they are some of the most brilliant artists on earth. They're traditionally trained. They have an incomprehensible amount, having done a tour, of art sitting in drawers. Could they take their art? Could they throw it into a proprietary LLM and pound out new ideas? Yes, and they should, and I'm sure they will. Should they then take it and have it auto-generate the objects in 3D, and then should they have it skin it and put in the bones? Yes. I think all of that they will build. I mean, those guys are as smart as it gets, right? ILM, Pixar, Digital Domain, et cetera. They're brilliant, and I'm sure they will use it in smart ways.
Great, thank you. Where did that one question go? With Sora, sorry, a moment. Yeah, so do you think advanced video tools, AI tools like Sora will be publicly available and affordable soon? Current tools run way are complex and results look often artificial. Maybe Peter, this is a good one for you.
I will provide my perspective, but I'm curious if Brian will agree. I would say that yes, and the reason for this statement is that I listened to an interview with co-founder of Sora, this Ilya guy, who said how vital for OpenAI is making GPT to be able to see and collect all the information from video, because like a human being, we collect most of the information from through eyes, and the same is now the case of their tool, which enhances the capacity tremendously. And what Brian showed on the first slide with the cost of training the new model, that's very much because of scanning all the visual inputs. And that will drastically accelerate the quality of Sora and, in the future, other forms of this, let's say, video part. And how far is that? I would say maybe 6 months. They claim that the next year is the year of video at OpenAI. So I would doubt it will take longer than that. Brian, would you agree? Shortly, because we have...
I would say no, I don't expect it to come out soon. I think it's an extraordinarily complex thing. It doesn't understand object permanence or object intersection. These things are pretty dumb. The ability to have it actually animate or to move coats around, I think we're a long way off. Actually, I don't really know what it would do. If the idea is to generate your own feature films or your own short films, maybe no. If it's to replace segments of films with shots, and yes, I think for short bursts, like 5-6 seconds, it'd be very interesting. To craft a custom short film, I don't see it in the next 12 to 24 months. I think that is incredibly complex.
I wasn't speaking about cinema quality, 2 hours long movie, of course, but rather this concept of, let's say, some expensive scenes and parts that could be done like
100%.
Yeah, today.
Cuts, yes, that will happen.
Perfect.
Also, isn't it expensive? Yes, it obviously, it's expensive to have these things run. One of the best things, if you read the earnings reports from NVIDIA, they are not only hyper accelerating the capabilities of the GPUs, they're figuring out their algorithms and ways to make them operate 1,000% faster. So I think everything is being attacked at the same level: better, smarter, faster hardware, better, smarter, faster algorithms. All of it is kind of coalescing at the same time. Lots of work to be done, and you should expect a very exciting next 5 to 10 years.
Couldn't agree more. Thanks everyone for joining. It's been a great session. Lots of great insights. Thank you, Dave, Brian, and Peter for all the preparations and slides. A lot of great insights there. Just a quick plug. We have a newsletter called Mobile Artificial Insights, which looks at AI from the lens of mobile marketing. AppAgent publishes it every other week. So if you're not already subscribed, since you're interested in AI, you're here, highly recommend taking a look at that. Thanks everyone for joining, and see you next time. Thanks.